Welcome, everybody. So in today's exciting episode, we are going to be using JWT Token. So that means getting your secret, actually getting the token, and then using that token to connect to an API. Keep your head in the cloud. All right, let's get started here. So the first thing we're going to do is make ourselves a couple folders. Keep ourselves organized. It's going to be the data services and the models. Let's add our models right now since they're going to be used almost immediately. And this model is going to be for checking to make sure that our saves are coming back as true. And our next model is going to be the string version of the same thing. All right. And then the final model is to capture our token. And I try to follow the same naming convention of having the class names with the model added to it, and then the dashes for the actual file name. It just helps when I'm autocorrecting and typing, and just to make sure that I don't have any errors or looking at the wrong one. And also for this one, I'm going to add this TS link disable, because these are non-compliant TS names, and that way it won't complain about it. Because I know this is what's going to be returned exactly from the API. Alright, so now let's create the data services class. We'll start, of course, with the imports. And we're just going to work our way down. Autocorrect is kind of diseasing me today. All right. And the HTTP client, of course, is for making the call. The injectable is so that when we're loading the data services into each one of our components, that it's accessible. And then the environment is so that when we create these apps in a path to production, then we can either automatically or here in the app set particular environment variables, and then make a build per environment. And then here comes in our models that we already created. Perfect. Let's give ourselves a little more room here. And let's not forget to make this injectable. All right, so let's hand roll. Well, first, of course, the constructor, and then we'll hand roll each one of these calls to the endpoint. And this first call is always a good call, just to make sure that the connectivity to the API is actually there. It saves me so much trouble when all of a sudden it drops. Is it something that I've done? I can always go back to this endpoint and test it on out. Let's put in our environment variables. I usually try to put these in up front, that way it doesn't stop us when we're coding. And to get the secret, there's a link below that you can click on, and that'll just take you over to Simple Cloudware, where you can get a secret to follow along. And the project's also there if you would like to grab it, and that way you could look at it and, you know, follow along with that also. All right, and I just blanked out the secret, so you'll have to use your own secret. All right, I got one parameter in here. Looks good. And then to create these next couple calls, I'm going to do a classic cut and paste job, which then creates a new set of problems. So we have to be really careful that when we cut and paste the code that we transition everything that needs to. So hand rolling it is got one set of problems, and cutting and pasting it gives you another set of problems. You just have to be careful. We'll bring in our secret here to get our token. And we should be good. Oh yeah, one thing we have to get is the token model. Well, that's a classic cut and paste problem right there. And then here's our test to make sure that our token is being created appropriately. This saves a lot of trouble too down the road when we're making calls to be able to come back and test off. And another thing to note with this parameter is you only need to put in the name once if it's exactly the same. So that's kind of a nice little shortcut. Alright, so let's generate a component. So all the pieces are here. One thing you have to make sure when you generate these components that you save everything beforehand, or you'll have merge conflicts with what it writes to the disk and then what you have in code. Otherwise, it's a pretty good way of creating all the component pieces. And then we're coming right over here and adding it to our routing. Looks good. The one thing we absolutely cannot forget is when we add the data services, we need to then go to the app.module, add the data services, and then add the calls that the data services need. It's another way I've sabotaged myself 100 times. All right, looks good. And then we just add these down here. All right, so let's add the navigation and make sure that we can navigate back and forth. Then we're just going to make some hrefs with the router links in them. And the dot, or the slash, will just take you to the home. Oops. All right, here we go. And let's fire it up and make sure that we've got something here. And I'll just put a little break in here so it won't be squished together. All right, here we go. So we can see that we're navigating back and forth. I try to get this established pretty quick. So now let's connect to our data services and actually make the call. Looks like the autocorrect got me again. What a mess. And this switch map is essential because when we're using the token to make a call, we need to line them up because it's calling them async. And so if we just fire them one after the other, then they can come back in any order and we won't be able to log in appropriately. So we want to call out, get our token, then when that comes back, call to check the authorization. And this switch map gives us the ability to make a call, wait for it, and then make a second call. All right, let's add in our data service. And let's first test to see if we can actually get a token. That way, when we go to the more complex switch, we'll know we have the first part right. And then we'll just set it to this public result, and then we'll just display that on the screen. All right. A little bit of cleanup here. And then let's just put the result out here so we can see it. All right, let's see what this looks like. There we go. Tokens come back with called out with our secret and got our token. So now let's create this switch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the token, and then we're going to use this pipe and our switch. And what it's going to do is the pipe is going to wait for the token to be returned from our get token, and we're going to add it into session, which is a common place to put your tokens. And then here we're going to make the second call. So this is going to test our authorization with that access token. All right. And now let's get this cleaned up a little bit. And subscribe. And this is what's being returned from the second call. And there you go, classic switch map setup. And then we'll just put the Boolean in here to prove our second call. All right, let's see what it's doing. Obviously taking a little bit longer. And there we go. We have the call to get the token, and we have the true, which is the test. I just did it again. So that's great. Congratulations, you have taken your evil secret and created a token. And from that token, you've connected to an API. It's been an amazing journey. Please comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I create another video. And remember, keep your head in the clouds.